Hi there. Yeah, it's me. I've been off the grid for a little while. A lot has happened in the 4 months that I've been gone. I guess I owe you an explanation. If you recall, I had 2021 all planned out back in January, and I spelled it all out for you here. I even promised to share with you my progress towards my big goals this year, my big physical ones, like achieving 15% body fat, completing 5 pull-ups, and even doing a Tough Mudder. I know exactly how I was going to accomplish all of my goals. I had all the details hashed out. However, if 2021 has taught me anything so far, it's that I learned that life never goes exactly how you planned it. Things have not gone according to plan, as you can tell. Don't get me wrong, I've learned a lot from my experiences over the last 9 months. I learned about emotional resilience. I learned how to take time for myself. I even learned a lot about video production skills along the way. The most important thing I learned was the one thing I didn't plan for at all. I learned about grief. Before we get into what I learned about grief, let's do a quick life update on what has been happening. Back in March, I shared with you that I had been very involved in the care of my father after his ICU experience in February. It all started right after Christmas, and he had a couple of falls, and he ended up going into the hospital and then rehab, and then all of a sudden, in February, everything just went sideways, and he ended up in ICU, and he was there in an induced coma for 6 days, and we've been dealing with all of that through this whole time. After that crisis, I spent March and April establishing new routines to manage the details of my dad's finances and medical care. My dad had improved quite a bit from his stay in the ICU in February. It looked like things were going to be stable for a while. In early May, though, my dad's health took a turn for the worse again. Towards the end of May, the main issues that put him in the hospital in February started to reassert themselves, and we were told that he was approaching end of life. On July 1st, I received a call that my dad was being sent to the emergency room. I spent the entire day by his side while waiting for answers from the doctors. It was about early afternoon when I was pulled aside by the doctor and told that my dad had 1 or maybe 2 weeks to live. And this wasn't a surprise, but it certainly isn't something a person can ever really prepare to hear. Now, my father, who had been in and out of delirium all day, had finally had a moment of clarity when he saw the doctor pull me out of the room. When I came back in, he asked me what the doctor said. It was the hardest thing I ever had to do, but I had the responsibility of telling my dad that he was going to die soon. Now, my father wasn't exactly surprised. In fact, a sense of relief came over him. We both knew that it was his time, and we were both ready. My father spent a week in hospice care, and on the morning of July 8th, he passed away and was freed from his suffering. My sister and I knew that this was coming. We didn't expect him to survive his ICU visit back in February. In fact, when he started recovering, we were warned then that my father would eventually lose his battle, and that we had just kicked the can down the road. When he started to pick up after getting out of the hospital in February, we figured that he would make it to the fall or perhaps even Christmas. We were still expecting his eventual passing, but not this soon. The one thing I learned through all of this is there's nothing that can prepare you for when it happens. So what happened next? Well, I didn't really have time to process. I immediately had to start working on wrapping up my dad's last affairs. Some of these steps I started before he passed away, but I immersed myself deep into the paperwork and the planning for his funeral for a week. This is all I focused on, nothing but taking care of what needed to be done. I was very focused and didn't have time to even think about what I was feeling at the time. But then, about 9 days after my dad died, I paused. I took a break from all of that work. And then it happened. I broke down. One Saturday, as I was running a few errands, I was going through a store and I saw an older man who reminded me a little of my dad. then the pain hit me. In my car, in the middle of a parking lot. I felt like a bomb had been dropped on me and my heart had been blown to pieces. Dad was gone. I couldn't go see him. I couldn't talk to him anymore. Soon the work I was doing for him would come to an end. And then what? As all of this started to sink in, I finally cried for the first time since he died, and I cried. I hadn't hurt this much in a very long time, and it was a new kind of pain. Many of you have heard about the stages of grief. There are 5 emotions most people will experience during grief. They are denial, anger, bargaining, sadness, and acceptance. Now, the interesting thing is, not everyone experiences all 5, and there is no specific order to these emotions. They can happen at any point, at any time. Let's go through these briefly. Now, the first is denial. Denial is where someone may not believe what is happening. There is a level of shock and disbelief. Now, in my case, this was a more complex emotion for me. My dad had been in poor health for years. My main shock happened when he was rushed to the ER in early February and almost died on that day. But as time went by and he was put in ICU, that shock actually faded into action for me to start taking action on things. I was never really shocked about anything after that. It was just one bit of bad news after another over time. Another emotion is anger, which is where you may be angry with yourself, your loved ones, perhaps even God. Now, I never felt any anger after my dad passed away, but there were times I felt angry towards my dad because of his life's choices that had put him in the circumstances that he was facing during that period of time. In fact, I even got angry with him and yelled at him at one point when he was taken to the ER that one day a week before he died, before fully understanding what was going on at the ER. Experiencing this emotion before he died tells me that I was going through grief even before he passed, knowing that he was going to be gone soon. The next emotion, bargaining, which is where someone may think they're in a bad dream or this isn't really happening and begin to bargain with God to change things. What if questions are asked here? Perhaps wondering if another outcome may occur as a result of some action. I knew that there was nothing I could do to stop the outcome where my dad would pass away. But I did keep asking God to ease his pain as soon as possible. I was asking for this starting even in February. I didn't exactly bargain. Maybe I did. But I did want that outcome to change. I prayed that my dad's pain would be eased. I didn't want my dad to suffer anymore. So in a manner of speaking, I went through this emotion for months. Now, sadness is what we experience when we actually lose someone. This can be the most powerful and overwhelming emotion. But the one thing to remember is that it's normal. This is what I experienced for the first time in that parking lot, 9 days after my dad died. I had experienced all the previous grief signs before he passed away, but they were spread out over time and they would come in small waves. Sadness was the one that was the most delayed and it hit me the hardest. Now there's acceptance. Well, that is a complicated one. I'll come back to that. After the sadness phase hit, it took a few days for me to bounce back. It wasn't until I told the people closest to me what had started happening that brought the most surprising feeling that I never expected: gratitude. When I told my wife that reality of Dad's passing had finally hit me, she stepped up and provided me with the support I needed. While I expected that she would do this, it helped me more than I realized, and it was very needed as well as appreciated. She helped me a lot. In addition to my wife, it was my closest friends that really surprised me. When I told them what happened, it was like a special forces unit had shown up at just the right times over the next week and a half to step up and lift me up. It was this overwhelming sense of caring and sacrifice that helped me push over the top and pull out of the sadness I was experiencing. It was my closest friends, my brothers, who knew when to reach out. They didn't hesitate once the call to action was made. They knew exactly what needed to be done. Now, in the past, when someone I knew had a loved one pass away, I usually would back off and give them space. Lots of space. What I learned through this experience is that giving someone space is not always the right answer. You don't want to overwhelm them, but that person really does want to know that they are not alone. Because of the support I received, I never felt like I was alone, and that made all the difference in the world. Now, getting back to acceptance. It's been more than 2 months since my dad passed away. Can I truly say I have accepted it? No. In fact, I'm not sure anyone can ever say they have full acceptance. It comes in degrees. I've known people who have lost loved ones 1, 5, 10, 20 years ago or more. The further down the timeline a person is from that loss, the degree usually becomes less, but the person is never gone from their hearts. Sometimes people are never able to fully accept that their loved one is gone. I experience reminders from time to time of my dad. Some come and go quickly as a passing thought. Once in a while, something triggers it and they hit harder and take a bit more effort to overcome. This will probably get less and less over time, I'm sure. Over the next year, there's going to be a number of firsts that will bring it front and center again for me. Those degrees of acceptance will still be small over time, but only time can cause acceptance to grow. This, in my opinion, is the hardest emotion of the grieving process to deal with and even take the longest time. I have learned so far that it's the most challenging, but I know as I focus on the happy thoughts when it happens and the good times that I had with my dad, that acceptance and that pain will get easier as time passes. I never realized it, but my grieving process has been going on for nearly 8 months. But even during my grief, I did have a few wins during that time. I was asked to partner up to put together video content with my buddy for his business, and I'm going to help manage that technical part of it as well to get that delivered. And that project I will share with you another time. It's all going to feed into my future self and my future career plans that I have. I have overall emotional resilience even after experiencing my grief. I am stronger than I ever was before in my life, and as a result, I have bounced back much quicker than I expected. Everything over the last few years has really prepared me for the last 8 months for what I went through. But the big question, what about my goals for 2021? Those big physical goals that I had. What about the Tough Mudder and achieving 15% body fat and the 5 pull-ups? Well, you will just have to wait until next episode to find out. Thank you for watching. Remember to please subscribe to my channel and hit that notification bell so you are alerted when I release another episode. And hit the like button if you liked what I shared with you today. I love you guys, and I am glad to be back. Until next time, take care.